Standing, Gus, but as the great Stephen Edge would say, we're getting better, aren't we, Michelle?
We are. We're on fire, and it's a pleasure to have you on board this afternoon. Well, let's talk about the scenes first of all. That the Bulldogs. Well, it was all over social media. It was absolutely everywhere last week. It was grand final like. What was it like to be amongst all that, Gus?
Yeah, I guess it was a trip down memory lane for a lot of people. The nostalgia of being at Bellmore and the Bulldogs having a good season and winning like that at home was wonderful. The fans really enjoyed it, and they haven't had much to cheer about for the last decade. So, yeah, when they're on top, the Bulldogs, there's no bigger club in the league.
That's the thing, Gus, and I was saying this to our audience the last month or so. If you can get Canterbury into the finals and that army that just gets behind them, it's going to be huge. I want to ask you, Gus, just taking you back to your days at Penrith, and what was it about Cameron Ciraldo that you saw, and when was it where you thought, gee, this boy's got a big career in coaching?
Yeah, I actually recruited him as a player at the back end of his career. I was looking for some sort of senior players that were typical of what I thought professionalism should look like. I wanted to bring through a lot of young players, but I needed some senior players that would set a good example and were role models. And Cameron had a lot of injuries through his career. I always saw him as a pretty handy player, and he came out there for a couple of years and did a really good job. But his body gave out and he retired from playing. But during that time, he gave freely of his time to be with the junior rep players. He went to their training sessions. He went to their games without ever being asked to do it. He got interested in the coaching of those sides. And when he got to the end of it, he wrote me a lovely email looking for a job in rugby league and wanted to be a part of what he could see being created at Panthers. And from that point on, he worked in education and welfare. Then he became an assistant coach to the under-20s team. He then took on the coaching of the 20s team and won a premiership, went to a grand final, and from there, assistant coach at the first grade level to Anthony Griffin and then ultimately Ivan Cleary. And he just had the perfect grounding. But I knew very early on he was a self-motivated, self-starter, self-educated, continually educating himself and wanted to be a coach. And he just looked like the perfect bloke to me. And looking at his body of work at Panthers and all those great kids he brought through out there, it was something that resonated with me that we needed at the Bulldogs.
Gus, I want to ask you also a similar question with Stephen Crichton. Critter becoming obviously a captain there. Ciraldo obviously had a lot to do with him. He's been a bit of a father figure to many of those young kids. But hasn't been wonderful to watch watch how Critter's blossomed, and he's just taken that leadership role with both hands.
Yeah, well, you say a father figure. He's 22 years of age. I mean, he's only a kid himself. He's still in the early stages of his career, and he too has a great body of work behind him. He's played in 4 grand finals and won 3 premierships, and he's played in State of Origin and now won a State of Origin series at such a young age. And when Cameron came to me early this year and said, "Look, I want to make Stephen Crichton captain," I thought that's a big ask for a young fellow, but if anyone can do it, it was Stephen. Last year, he sort of came to me and shared the captaincy with Reed Marnie and Matt Burton, and I thought that was a real burden on those two boys, and you can see how much better it makes them not having to deal with all that as issues. But at 22 years of age, Stephen Crichton is a leader in his own right. He has such an aura about him, not just with our players, but with all the administration here, with our club, and junior league, junior reps. He had an appearance at Canterbury Leagues the other night, and they were lined up for half a mile down the road just to get in and see him and take a photo with him. It's quite extraordinary, the aura that he has. He was a kid that we knew very young at Panthers. He was out there at 16 and 17 in the system and always had talent. He could have played any sport. He could have played AFL. He could have played basketball. He chose rugby league, thankfully. And he was one of those great players out there that won premierships. That obviously didn't want to leave the club, but salary cap sort of forced the issue. And we were really the only club he talked to. We were so lucky that he chose us at this stage of his career and entrusted it to Cameron Ciraldo and the rest of the Bulldogs. But he's given us far more than we can give him at the moment, and he'll continue to do so.
Gus, we're here at an empty Accor Stadium, Michelle, and looking to our left and you can see the ghost of Stephen Crichton scoring that. I know Nathan Cleary gets the kudos, and rightly so, for that big premiership winning, but he has come up with, and this is the only reason why I have some reservation about Penrith being morals for this year, is because pretty much Parramatta, they won that game comfortably. South Sydney, a big Stephen Crichton moment. Last year, a big Stephen Crichton moment. I know dreams are free, Gus, but your team, your Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs team, and the army of fans behind them, they do commit to the 80 minutes. So when you start to think, okay, well, Melbourne, superstar team, superstar coach, likewise for Penrith, but they're not over the line. There is actually no reason why Canterbury can't go all the... I know it wasn't the plan probably for this year, but there's actually no reason why you can't go all the way, is there?
Yeah, look, right at the moment this weekend there will be 16 teams that go out to play in the NRL competition, and everyone has named 17 players for this weekend. Of all the 16 teams that will play, the Bulldogs, their top 17, or the 17 that they've named, have played less NRL games than any other team in the competition.
Wow.
It's still a very young side, and a lot of players, with less than 10 and 20 first-grade games. And they're doing extraordinarily well to be where we are at the moment. And the pleasing part of this season, unlike the last decade, is that we get down to the last 8 or 10 rounds, and we're playing in games that count. We're playing in games that matter. And usually at this time of the season, over the last 10 years, the Bulldogs have been out of the running. So you're just sort of playing, trying to get through to the end. And now for the fans and the club itself, to be playing in games that count, to be playing in front of big crowds at Suncorp Stadium, and you saw Bellmore sold out on the weekend, and we've had crowds of 40,000 out at Accor this year, and no doubt we'll be playing in front of packed-out crowds for the rest of the season. We've got the Dragons, we're up at Bundaberg, we're over in New Zealand for the Warriors, and then in 2 home games against the Cowboys and Manly to finish the season off. And it's a great experience for these young blokes to be playing in games like this right at this stage of their career and where the team is being developed. We've played less NRL games than any team in the competition, and we're going to be playing against much bigger and much more experienced football teams over the next 5 weeks in games and count, and that's a great experience. How far we can keep that going? Well, I don't know, you don't know, but I'm not about to put a limit on it, and I'm not about to say that, these things can't happen. But right at the moment, it's just great to be playing in these games, to give our fans the opportunity to go along and support them, and to be going to the football believing that their team is competitive and they can win every time they go out to play.
Okay, Gus, that's very well said. Now, I don't know the answer to these, but you do know the answer to these. So, tourists, can you please, let's play this game.
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you.
Gus, they want to know you. The fans...
The board has lit up, Gus. It is absolutely gone bonkers.
They want to know Phil Gould. So let's start with a few easy ones. Clearly, you're known for being a big Seinfeld fan. Favourite episode, favourite star on the program?
My favourite episode, gee, there's a few. The Contest.
Oh, yeah.
Keith Hernandez.
Yeah.
And
what about
the Hamptons?
The Hamptons. Okay, now of the top 4, of the main 4, Elaine, who was, by the way, she was the only one not to be in the pilot. Right. Jerry, Kramer, and George. Who's your favourite?
George. I think there's a little bit of George in all of us. I think. I mean, I love Kramer, but George. Yeah, we've all been George at some stage, I think.
I reckon there's a lot of George in you. Just saying.
What do you got, Michelle?
Okay, well, the number one question's been your favourite Chinese meal. They're at the Bulldogs. What's the dish?
Favourite Chinese meal? All right, so if I'm eating in a Chinese restaurant, I love to start with Peking duck. But if I'm just getting a takeaway for myself, I get the combination short soup, and that's when soup is a meal.
Yum. Love it.
Oh, Gus, I'll tell you what, we're at Accor Stadium here. I'm starving, and we're nowhere near a Chinese restaurant. But
it's a vending machine.
I'm absolutely frothing. There was another text that come through who said, when Gus is doing a Canberra game and he's driving home and Sutton's Forest just drags you in, what's the meal from McDonald's?
I can't help it. The car just turns there. It's compulsory. See, it sees the golden arches and it goes in, and I get a Big Mac meal, large Big Mac meal, and that sustains me through to the end. All the late nights we have during the course of the season, driving home from football games, whether it be commentary or if your team's playing, or I go out to watch the football or what have you, pretty much religiously stop and get a kebab on the way home at Blakehurst, which is close to home, and so I sneak a meal in before I get home, and everyone finds out.
Oh, the big one on the corner there opposite the pub?
Yeah.
Oh, I've not given that a go,
one.
Michelle.
I walk in, he sees my car pulled. He sees my car pulled up, and by the time I get to the counter, all I've got to do is give him $20, and I'm gone. He's already made it.
You're out.
Oh, that sounds good too.
This one's a little bit more serious, but who's been the most influential person in your life? This is another question that's been sent in by one of our listeners.
My father. This January, he would have died 9 years ago, and he still talks to me every day.
Wow.
That's nice. What about the Missile? The Missile sent in a couple of questions from Paris. He wants to know how much of a star is Mitch Woods?
Young Mitchell Woods? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a great young kid. We'll take his career slowly, and we certainly won't be rushing him, but we won't hold him back. But he's a talent. I believe he'll be an NRL player, and a very good one. He's still very young. He's only 18 years of age, and he's very brave. I want to protect him from himself, particularly the brave ones at that age, because they've got no fear. And he's not overly big, but he's very, very constructive. He's very quick. I'll probably liken him to a young Steve Mortimer back in those days, for those people that remember. And I'm hoping he'll be a Bulldog for a long time.
I met the parents, Gus, Danny and Harry. And,
lovely people.
And I'm told that you had said to somebody, maybe it was Sats or someone else, very, very young, you said about Nathan Cleary. I'm not making any comparisons about Mitchell Woods and Nathan Cleary, but you said this guy's a tap-in because, A, he's a talent, but B, his parents are just buttoned up, very sturdy, good people. I get the sense there's a bit about this kid as well. Same family sort of type of...
Yeah, I think, Joel, when we meet a lot of kids, and we and obviously, we're responsible for the development of their career and whatsoever. But I said it at the time with a young Nathan Cleary, and I spoke to his father Ivan at the time at a very young age about a 10-year deal to be a Panther for life.
Wow.
Which is a big call for anyone. But the reason I can do that is because the risk factors were negligible, and risk factors can be education, family life, attitude, drugs, alcohol. Like Nathan Cleary was born into a professional football family and had a wonderful family and had a great attitude, and he was a student of the game. And, all the risk factors that you can have with kids that are going to interfere with the choices they make in life or their ability to deal with the pressure of being a professional footballer, a lot of them don't tick those boxes, and you really got to play an active part in their life and their development as well. But every now and then a Nathan Cleary and a Mitch Woods comes along where the risk factors just don't exist. And you can trust yourself to invest in them long term and know that, if they don't make it, it won't be for lack of trying. Mitch Woods, you can cancel all those risk factors so far as personality, character, commitment, family life, upbringing, education, and his own personal behaviour. So, that's one of the reasons why we do a lot of work on investigating their background and their character.
Speaking of risk factors, I should reminded me, Gus, Fletcher's back tomorrow. So, hey, Phil Gould, the great Gus. We really appreciate
when you're
your
talking
time.
risk factors, when you're talking risk.
Yep. Sorry, Gus.
When you're talking risk factors with Brian Fletcher, now we're talking like
Gus, really appreciate it. As you know, with commercial radio, we've got these hard outs, and unfortunately we've got to go. But we would have you for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, the whole show. But all the best for the rest of the season, Gus. We really appreciate you sharing your time with us today.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Gus.
What a champion. The run home with Joel and Michelle.